So before we proceed with the agenda, we'll just confirm that this good. That's so we're okay to proceed. First item on the agenda is the last month's meeting. I can take a look at it. I can see any issues there. So
oh yeah, I did already. Okay. Sorry about that.
So just take some time to review, and if everything's okay, entertain a motion for minutes to that March meeting.
Move to approve, subject to correction.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So the minutes are approved. Then we'll go straight to old business. And David, want to talk about the
yeah, we'll go to the Accountancy Fund. Ending market value in April 17th was so we're coming back up, still a couple $100,000. January 2022, we were 4.7, a little over 4.7. Now we're back to 4.4. And the market's still fluctuating. At least we're coming back up. The statement from March showing that for the first quarter of 2023 calendar year, we're at 5.5% performance. And annualized since inception, our performance is 5%. That's pretty close to the target 6% that we have on our investment plan. For we targeted 6% at average earnings over the 20-year period, and that 6% earnings over 20 years would mean that we could spend $200,000 to $300,000 a year on the visiting professor program on average, and at the end of 20 years still wind up basically the same course we started. I think we're reasonably okay. We haven't had any realized losses per se, and this statement shows us, I think, was a realized gain of about 22,900. Goes the very back page. Summary of realized gains and losses. So we have a long-term gain of 22,977. So overall, because we weren't forced to liquidate any in the last couple of years, I realized the market's coming back.
That 22,977 is a long-term gain. I mean, that's from inception. What's the year to date?
This is year to date. Just from, yeah. Last year, I think for 2022, I think we had a realized loss of. So fortunately, not being forced to liquidate any investments allowed us to try it out in the market. Come back to that. That's where we're at. I don't have any more information in terms of visitor customers.
What about that one with that's not business. That's the
yeah, Billy is we're going to use the visiting professor program to pay for the cost of Billy to Moorhead to present one of the MAC courses for the UOG MAC program. So $5,000. What we pay in this time to present that course, part of the MAC course. Okay. I told her that we'd be happy to support any visiting professors.
okay. And it's $5,000, right?
Yeah.
And it's just all like.
Yeah, that's the same basic stipend. He's been doing. That's what they pay them. Each course. It's a normal course, no other expense. That's kind of understand until we get a name. I do understand that they're still looking to fill the position for professor. But hopefully,
Mhm.
Well, those are two separate questions. Considerations, right? We'll finish this degree, then taking the job is, yeah.
The lights are already on.
I think he's
The lights
pursuing his
are already
PhD,
on.
so he can teach UOG.
he wants to,
Yeah.
It's still on.
but he's supposed to finish the PhD.
Mhm.
And hopefully, well, soon. But that's kind of where we stand.
Mm-mm.
Have a couple of contacts for potential future.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's some interesting things like he, he worked with Ray Johnson on the material. He said he really executed about teaching.
Yeah.
Kids. That's one of the benefits of bringing somebody who's got the experience, kind of experience.
So, yeah, James, I think the only thing which James would do differently is have more in-person sessions.
Well,
James is
that's
all
kind of what Ray
online.
was.
Yeah, I'm just trying to learn auditing all online. Maybe
It's difficult.
yes,
Thanks. Thanks.
my understanding. Also, but I think maybe one incentive to get someone. Hey, you don't have to drive all the way to Manila. With your own home, and I think that maybe also works if you can prove your. I'm not sure exactly that's what he does, but when I was approached, is you can just pre-record your class, show it, play it, and you can answer questions while the students, you're there.
But I think that's on this side that
Okay, it's
Hi, Dave. I can't hear anything on my side. Neither can I. I can't hear anything.
Think so.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll see when it's on.
Oh.
No,
That's when it's on.
there you go.
Too cute.
Interesting, yeah.
I can hear you guys now.
Oh,
That's
okay.
This one.
Same here, loud and clear.
There we go.
You can see us too?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's always the first thing I try with my device, turn off, turn it back on.
Yeah.
Reboot.
60%.
90%.
Jerry always the Jerry from RT guys. That's
First thing they
You're
said.
off and on
just
it.
reboot.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did you off it?
That's, why didn't I just do that myself? Why did I
Yeah.
even look? for
Send him
it?
this lengthy email, what's going wrong, and it
Right,
says,
right.
oh, just turn it off and then turn it on.
Yeah.
Really embarrassing when it works, right?
But it mostly works, yeah. It's just, things get lost in the computer's not like a human brain.
Okay. So where did we leave off? I
Anyway,
think we were just talking about the,
Visiting professor.
visiting
program,
professor.
yeah. So we're just kind of in limbo until they get a dean, and also I know the search committee is still on for the president, so. They'll get a new president and a new dean sometime in the near future, I guess. That's all I had for that.
okay. So it's like the next item is,
Next, that's the licensing.
there was only one Guam candidate.
Well,
Where is Manhattan, Guam?
I,
think it's in one of the hotels, or is it at?
that's the
Sand
group.
Castle?
No, I think that's the group that owns the Royal Orchid.
Yeah. I
Oh,
think
is
it's
it?
The Royal Orchid
Is it?
people.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I knew it was a hotel.
I think it's the group that,
Yeah, that's
the
their,
Stu family group.
yeah, that's their operating.
Not David, the other one,
I
the
don't
brother,
know.
the brother. It's
David
not
or-
David.
I'm not sure, but
It's hard to tell who's in charge.
I was thinking of the brother.
okay, so yes.
Anyway, who knows, but Royal
Move,
Orchid.
move to approve?
Okay,
That's good. Yeah, we did only have one candidate.
and everything is submitted for approval.
Yeah,
Um,
everything is fine.
can I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sean. Thank you,
Okay.
Sean.
Thank you. That's 44 more licensees.
So next item of what the credit extension
Next
request.
time was the two people we have requesting extension. The first one is the guy who's diagnosed with acute viral hepatitis, not anything that's fun. And he's supposed to stay in the house, in the bed in the house for 45 days, so he's just requesting an
Okay.
extension to June. Which is basically only a month. And then the second guy is the one whose father had a heart attack, and he's been taking care of his family, and he has he's had some other issues along the way too, got COVID and stuff. And he's only requesting through May. He's scheduled to take, so he just wanted a credit for his audit to be extended. Filing that, but he has been dedicated in taking the exam. He's taken 5 or 6 times to pass the 3 parts he's taken in succession. He's not like waiting 6 months to take it. So I feel like he's legitimate request. And the documentation he submitted supports everything he said.
Okay. He mentioned in there, I think he or she, 24 months, the new. So is that what we're following now, or?
No, we've gotten,
Exposure draft.
yeah, that's part of the exposure.
Yeah,
draft,
right.
and as we
Okay.
recommended, and most people are probably gonna go with, but there's nothing, nothing in law or rule yet.
Okay,
But we've had a number of candidates, exam candidates, email us asking, oh, is the 24 months in effect? Da, 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 da. And so I asked NASBA, why did you post all of that on your website like it was already
Yeah.
official? And Pat's response was just send the request to me and I'll answer it. So when I get it, I send it to her and she answers it.
Okay.
So I don't have to worry. I'm like, I don't want to keep explaining to these people.
Yeah.
But
And they seem so certain that they.
You'd be surprised how many requests we've gotten, people wanting to know, hey, I got 24 months. So. anyway,
Okay,
Yeah,
so your recommendation is to approve both?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
It's,
And-
we get a few every month and most of them, we just say, no, I don't think so, because they're like, oh. I haven't had time to take the exam. I'm working too hard, can I have a 6-month extension or somewhere I wanted a year extension? I'm like, no, I don't think so. You should plan for that when you sign up,
A year extension.
Yeah. And he has absolutely no credit for anything, and he hasn't taken the exam in 6 months, but he wants a year extension on his NTS. I'm like, give me a break. That's not gonna happen, so.
Okay, so if there's no issues from any of the other board members, then we'll go ahead and proceed with approving them.
Yeah, I think they're legitimate requests.
Okay, good. Next item is the, what is it, the finance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the financial statement here for March shows us pretty well on budget. I think we're gonna exceed our budgeted revenues by a few, maybe 40, somewhere between 30 and 50,000 overall. But we're on track there, and expense wise, we're fine. So I think we're gonna wind up probably with about 50,000 or so in excess revenues.
Excess revenue.
Now if we our TCD, our last TCD, which was the 2-year one at Bank of Hawaii, matured this month, and we picked up the check the other day. It said 256,000. So we're going to take that and probably combine it with the other TCD that matured 3 or 4 months ago and contribute it to the endowment fund. It'll be about 500,000.
So what do we do with the Bank of Hawaii TCD? We withdrew it and put it into,
Right now, we just put
Savings.
it in the checking account.
Checking
So,
account, okay.
yeah, we just picked up the check the other day,
Okay.
2 days ago, or last Friday. And, no, I guess it was Monday or Tuesday, we picked up the check, so I want to go ahead and contribute that to the endowment fund. I
So-
think,
So Dave, because because there's no dean, are they going to delay implementing our recommendations, or is the acting dean planning to act on them, or sort of in a holding pattern?
you mean the ad hoc committee recommendations?
Yeah, the one about, getting rid of the entry test and
Yeah, basically, as far as I understand it, at this point, nothing's happening in that regard.
yeah, it doesn't make sense for the acting dean to try and push this through when she may not be the dean, right? So I think she wants whoever the new dean is to actually make or be involved in those decisions.
Yeah,
and you were saying that probably won't happen until the new president is selected? That they appoint the permanent dean?
don't really know.
Oh, no,
I think it's 2 separate searches.
2 separate search
Okay.
They are actually have a separate team, search committee already in place for the dean. But I don't know how far along they are. I haven't seen any ads.
Yeah.
Have you seen any ads?
No, I haven't seen any ads. I know Martha mentioned something about an ad, but I'm not sure if it was for the open professor position or the dean position.
Well, because in the search committee for the dean, they were trying to get one member to come from the advisory council. And they asked me, and I said, no, I couldn't, because it's a conflict. EY now is the auditor for the university. So I think they were trying to find another council member, and I think that's what they were doing. They might have already identified one, so I don't know, and that was a couple of weeks ago when they asked me.
Okay, so I'm basically of the opinion at this point that the whole thing is, the whole program is on hold until they actually nominate a permanent dean.
Plus, I think nothing's really gonna happen until they have a third professor, because a lot of decisions needs the approval or the approval from the department.
And the faculty and the department, then the division, and one of the points that Doreen made was in order to make the changes, like getting rid of that test and using the new thing that Marilyn Johnson introduced, was that you have to change the catalog, and the catalog can only be changed like, I don't know, every semester.
You have to do it early enough.
You have to do it early enough to get it in the new catalog for it to be effective for the new cohort of students, or however that works. I'm not very knowledgeable about how academia is their stuff. So.
Yeah, so some of these decisions, I guess we recommended. That, there's only 2 accounting professors, and both of them didn't agree on it, so it's a stalemate. It can't pass unless they agree. So that's why you need a third accounting professor to either
At the department level.
the department level, so that there can be a majority decision saying we'll move forward, or a majority decision that says no, we're staying. And if that happens, then we can't go any further.
Yeah.
We didn't really understand how that process worked. We thought that the dean
Could make the decision.
could make the decision, but it turns out that,
Silly us.
well, it was interesting. The dean was the one that brought together the committee, said, please
committee
give me
to do
your recommendations. And then we find out that no, it has to be determined or agreed at the department. So what we're hoping to see is that they do find a third professor, and then we can go and discuss with them our recommendations, and hopefully that third person will agree with us, or agree with the committee, and we'll go forward.
I think Doreen was to the point of agreeing that something needed to be done, but just it's gonna take time to do it.
Yeah,
I hope anyway.
but we haven't really had a real meeting with Doreen as well. Can't take that, take it back, because she was on the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the committee that oversees the visiting professor program has not met because there is no dean, and the dean is typically in charge of that committee and sets up those meetings with the faculty, etc. We always met in the dean's conference room. So until we get a permanent dean, I think can restart our program, we're in kind of a holding pattern. However, I'm just thinking I'd rather put the funds in the endowment fund and have them earn a lot more than the 0.12% or whatever we can get out of the savings account, TCDs at the bank. They're still very low rates relative to what the endowment fund can earn.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, financially speaking, we're, I don't see any issues with that. And then if you want to look at the graph, application wise through CPACE, we're holding our own. We're still above last year, well above last year, 6-8%. But what we're seeing is the mix is changing, where we are getting more re-exams versus new applicants, first time exams. And I got a call last week to have a meeting this week with Senator Joe S.A. He's in charge of the budget, of course, for Guam. So I went to his office yesterday for the meeting, and basically it was just a meeting with his staff. Steve Guerrero.
Oh, Steve was there.
Yeah, Steve's there, I guess, working for the show now. And they just kind of wanted to know if we were okay with our projected, our request, our budget request, and our projected revenues. we covered the fact that, they've been appropriating the same $789,800 since 2019. And, Steve made the point, well, that's kind of why we're talking, because you guys are the only agency who's ever seen it requested less. And I said, well, and he said, well, I looked at your expenditures and I saw 1 year you were like 1.6 million, and next year you're only 400,000. I said, well, you have to understand that that big chunk is strictly just the contribution to the endowment fund. So I explained that,
Okay,
and he's like, okay, I get it. And he did make the point that he's not sure he understands why the legislature thinks they have to appropriate our money every year when the statute says it belongs to us anyway. So,
oh, he did say that.
but yeah, but it's the lawyers tell you that that's the way it works. So. And he also said that one of the things that they had found out was that a number of agencies come every year requesting more budget this year than last year. But they found out that many of them have carryover that they haven't spent from last year, and they're still carrying it over. And even though they have all this carryover, they're even asking for more. And so he said they've come to the conclusion that they're including a provision in the budget law this year that says you can spend any carryover you have, but you have to spend it by the end of this fiscal year. You're going to lose it in 2024, meaning 2024.
Because you can only carry it over
Yeah.
1 year.
In other words, yeah. And we're going to stop this annual carryover stuff. So I said, well, basically we just take our excess revenue and put it in the endowment fund. And I explained the visiting professor program. He's fine with that. He said, I said, well, you can go ahead and appropriate the 780,000 if you want to, and it's okay with us. He said, and his question was, well, we're just trying to get to a more realistic revenue figure, so, and what they've been appropriating was based on our expenses from a long time ago. So I said, I'm pretty confident that our projected revenues for FY 2024, which is 530,000, I think. I put the budget thing in here. Let's see, what was it? 537,000 total. So I think that's pretty reasonable. It's a little conservative. And I explained that, the issue is because the new exam that's starting is going to have score delays of up to 3 or 4 months. People that would normally test in January get their score in 3 weeks and then test again in February or March or April. Are going to test in January and not get a score until May, so they won't be able to take the exam again until June. So you're going to have this big delay. So that's kind of why we've projected what we did, the way we did. And he said he's fine with that. He just wanted to be sure that we're okay with what we projected and what we asked for. So I said, yeah, we are, and well, I don't see any issues with our covering our expenses, and whatever we have left over, we contribute to the endowment fund. So yeah, he's fine with that. His attitude is that by statute, our monies belong to us, so, as a special revenue fund. So no real issues there. So that's kind of where we stand. So far, our application revenues are holding it somewhere between 12 and 14,000 a month, which is basically what we've been expecting. We've been a little bit ahead of the trend because nationwide it's been decreasing still, but we've been kind of holding steady. We were increasing a little, we're holding steady now, but we still have revenues up over last year, so can't complain about that.
How about applications from local candidates? Are we seeing more? I mean, what does that look like in terms of people living on Guam or Saipan?
We get
taking
3
the
or
exam?
4 every quarter.
Every quarter.
3 or 4, sometimes more, but you don't see it in the revenue figures here because all the local applicants are not charged the fee that the
Okay.
board gets. So in other words, if you go as a local resident of Guam or Saipan to apply to take the test at the test center, they don't charge you the amount of the fee that we get. They only charge you the amount they need to cover their self.
Okay.
So they get.
So how do
they get the
we have this
discount.
number?
I just get it, I get the number from, Randy tells me when they have, how many they.
Oh, such an, okay.
Just
The
kind of
so-called free
understand
ones,
that,
I guess.
I think a while ago, didn't we used to
But
have,
he handles it directly.
I
Gotcha.
thought we had some report a long time ago where we listed all the applicants.
We did when we had, but now we have 10 applicants.
So,
I get the letter and it says we had 10 applicants and they took 17 sections, that's it. And probably half of them are from Guam, the other half are some,
Okay.
mostly Taiwanese, actually. Of the non-Guam is basically Taiwanese. We have
that
like
way he's now, right?
maybe
Okay.
one from China or something.
These are applicants to the testing center.
China from, yeah,
Okay,
taking the test.
Taking
at
the test,
testing
right,
center,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, we've so far, the maximum number of CPA exam sections that have been given in the last 14 months in the test center is 17.
okay.
17 sections?
Yeah, sections. Over 10 candidates. We've had less than 10 candidates and like we've had, 4 candidates in 11 sections. But the last month we had 10 candidates and they took 17 sections. So it's not a huge volume, so I'm tracking the numbers. But,
And most of it was last month.
yeah, biggest one was last month. Yeah. So, the real issue is still with China. If the Chinese, mainland Chinese can get out of China and come to Guam, take the test and go back without the quarantine stuff or whatever it is they have to do. I mean, they still have a lot of restrictions, I guess. I think those people would come back to take the test here because they can't really get to Japan or Korea either, so.
Mhm.
And we do have people coming from Taiwan to take the test, but Taiwan only has charter flights. There's no regularly scheduled flights at this point, they're all charter flights. So, it is what it is until we used to have a reasonably decent cohort between Hong Kong and Taiwan. Chinese coming to take the test. We don't have anybody from Hong Kong or mainland China at all. Still. So that's one of the issues. I've talked to Carl at GVB about it, and he's like, "Yeah, we're trying to get them here, but until China lets them out, they're not going to come." And then you got flight problems. So still have flight problems.
I think it's basically the flight problems.
Yeah.
Not flight.
Well, and what's happened. I mean, it's just Japan and I'm sure China and even Taiwan. In Japan, the Japanese government subsidized, gave a huge subsidy to the tourism agencies to basically offer really cheap domestic packages to try to keep people at home so they could keep the currency. Yeah. And I'm sure that's happening the same thing. The Chinese are probably trying to keep them, and where is it? What's the destination they have? There's one of the islands they have. They've created a resort that's like Hawaii, but it's Chinese, and they want to keep them there because it's domestic. So I'm sure there's some of that too. But overall, we're doing okay.
Okay.
That's kind of where we stand at this point.
So. What year is it? So do we need to?
Are the Koreans, they can take the test in Korea? They're not coming to Guam anymore?
Right, we have very little, we haven't had any Koreans come to Guam. The test center is in Korea is very small. I understand it has like 25 or 30 seats. But I think they planned an expansion, but the Koreans are testing in Korea. They don't have to come to Guam anymore. So we've had very little Koreans. We haven't had any Koreans actually.
So whatever they have there must be okay for them.
Yeah,
Basically, they're willing
yeah.
to wait or whatever.
yeah, I guess so. And, we're getting more Korean tourists, so maybe we'll get some people that want to come, from a tour standpoint, and take the test and, relax a little bit.
And the test center has other business that keeps them open since the number of CPA
that's-
applicants are small.
Let's put it this way, they give other tests other than the CPA exam, and they probably do 100 or so a month. But it's not really enough to keep them open. The thing that's keeping them open is that NASBA uses the staff out of the test center here to support their call center operation. When they close down in the States, they're open here, so that's the other half of why they still have the whole test center open.
I think they,
But Randy does his best to promote Korean, candidates that come to Guam, but it's kind of hard when they have a test center in Korea.
I think we'll learn more when it's time to renew their lease.
Yeah,
I think that's either next year or is it?
might be 2 more years. I'm
2
not
more
sure
years.
if it's next year or not, but Ken has more than once told me that, they plan to keep it open no matter what, because it's also supporting their call center operation. And the reason they like that is because apparently it's much easier to get people with the language resources here than it is in the States. They're more available and they're cheaper.
Yeah.
Number one.
Cheaper.
And number two, they're also using some of the people here to do some of their education evaluation through the NIES function. They've trained some of those people to do that also. So they're not sitting there waiting for people to show up. They're actually doing work, but they're working for NASBA, on an outsourced schedule, so to speak. But Ken said a couple of times that he plans to keep it open no matter what. So.
Okay.
Dave, you mentioned 10 candidates, 17 sections. That was last month.
Well, that would have been for March, which means.
And how many of the 10 were the Guam residents?
Like half, you said, right?
Trying to think, let's see, what do we make 7, so maybe 3 or 4 sections were Guam residents, so we don't get revenue for. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it was like 3 candidates or 2 candidates that took 2 sections. I don't know, I'd have to ask Randy.
So not very many in the pipeline.
No. No, I've budgeted at 0.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it'll pick up until the Chinese can actually travel again on a regular basis.
Well, I'm just.
They're just wondering why the
residents,
local,
yeah.
the locals are not taking.
It seems like we get maybe 1 license
Yeah,
every
Yeah.
couple months, something like that.
local.
Yeah, local.
Well,
It's a small accounting.
the UOG mentor tends to send everybody to the AGA, be a government accountant, tell them that you don't need to be a CPA. She has no desire to make CPAs. So, she's even said that.
Government accountants are not CPAs.
Well, Doreen tells them that you don't need to be a CPA, just go work for the government, they pay more.
Well, she doesn't need to say, I mean, I'm not sure if she actually says don't be a CPA, but
She
now that the
has.
government has a 22%, there's no need to.
No, it's even worse, yeah. It was bad before, it's even worse now. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, that's kind of where we stand. I did have some discussion among the executive directors. There was some people that were one of the calls I was on, we were discussing they're all discussing the 120 hours to sit for the exam versus 150-hour licensure, et cetera. And there was a survey of states or jurisdictions who allows you to sit for the exam at 120 and do your grades ever expire, and can you apply for licensure 10 years later and stuff like that. And by and large, I think we were in line with most, except that we require you to complete your education, which is now the 150 hours. And under our pre-completion program for education, you can sit up to 18 months before you complete your education. But you have to complete the education, meaning the 150 hours, to get your grades. A lot of the other jurisdictions say you can take the exam at 120 and they don't care if you ever complete your education or anything, they just leave it as that. So they have a lot of people who sit for the exam and never apply for licensure or anything else. So, but there are a few that are like us that said, you know, if you can sit at 120, you pass the exam, you get your grades, but if you don't apply for licensure within 3 years or 5 years, your grades are going to evaporate. Basically, they void the grades. And with us, if you don't complete your education within the required time, we void the grades. You don't get the
Which is 18 months.
18 months.
18 months, right?
Yeah. There are a couple of states that allow you to sit like, 180 days earlier, or 3 months earlier, 6 months, but, and, if you don't get done, then you don't get any credit. But there are a lot that basically say you can sit at 120 and then they don't track anything after that. So there's some discussion about, well, what if the guy comes back 9 years from now and says, I passed the exam 9 years, here's my grades and I want a license. And my response was, I mean, the first thing is that we don't accept any experience that's more than 5 years old. So if you come to apply for a license, your experience has to be within the last 5 years in order to be counted from our perspective, number one. Number two, if you're trying to get an attest license and your experience was 4 years ago, we're probably going to require you, like we did with one of our licensees that wanted to come out of retirement, to do a pre-issuance review. And there's several other states that do that, require CPE or require reviews and things like that. For people who want to get licensed where their experience is old, or they haven't actually been experienced in what they're trying to do, that kind of. So I think in that sense, just from the discussion that I saw and all the emails going around, we're pretty well in the upper quadrant of, requirements in terms
Of
of
strictness.
being sure that we, license people who are at least capable of doing a basic job. Where a lot of the other ones, some of them were. And then there were a couple of complaints about people who just give out extensions like they're candy. If you request one, you get one. There were a few jurisdictions that were complaining about their neighbor jurisdictions. We don't have any close by jurisdictions to do that. So. But other than that, the exposure draft is out there for the 24 months. And I think the closing date was March 31st. So my understanding is that it's going to be under discussion through May. And then NASBA and AICPA are looking at vetting, recommending the final changes sometime in the October timeframe. Okay. Same thing's true with the CPE standards changes they're looking at. So that's about all I have.
Okay.
You got your scholarship for the regional meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't think anybody else wanted to go. So the annual meeting is going to be in New York City in October. So anybody who wants to go to that, let me know. Definitely let me know.
This regional meeting is, my schedule is tight, so I leave here Tuesday.
Yeah.
The leave there Friday.
That's like the last one I went to.
Yeah, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
It's the schedule.
Go there and come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that last time. Yeah, I'm going to the Eastern Regional Meeting, which is in Savannah, Georgia, so. Yeah,
And the United rates are, oh my gosh,
yeah. Getting worse,
yeah.
a lot worse.
I mean, when you look, a lot of the economies, $4,000.
That's ridiculous.
Well, there are some, you can 2,900, but it's a 32-hour flight.
Well, yeah, I know, yeah. well,
Maybe a
they have
26-hour
that.
flight.
Also, like us, we're leaving on May the 17th, which is, Thursday, I think. But we really wanted to leave like on Sunday, but if you leave Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, it's $500 more per person
Person riding.
to leave on one of those days than it is to leave on Thursday. So leave on Thursday. It's ridiculous. If you don't do the my dates are flexible and check the prices, you could really, wind up paying out of the nose.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, there's no other item up for this,
so,
for discussion. Can I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to approve.
Second
Seconded.
by Jenny. Okay, thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.
yeah.
Thank you, Tolling. Thank you, Francis.
Okay, thanks. See you later.
Safe
Yeah.
travels. I think you're still traveling, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Safe travels, Tolling.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Good night. Bye.
Good night. Oh, yeah, she's in Hawaii, I think.